Hang on. Yeah, I didn't want to record that other thing. A week from today is the last day to drop the class. I'm hoping that none of you have to, or need to, or want to, for that matter. Okay. Also, a week from today is Practicum 3. We reviewed quite a bit for that on Tuesday, and we're going to do the same thing today. Okay. Let me go ahead and share the screen then. Okay, we're still at module 11. You have a short discussion topic on vaccination. The assignment for chapter 5 will not be due for P3. It'll be due for P4. You can certainly turn it in as early as you wish. It's an easy chapter. It's a short chapter. We outlined it ourselves on Tuesday. Okay. The integumentary system we talked about briefly yesterday. Yesterday meaning Tuesday, of course. The checklist for P3, in case you weren't here or haven't looked at the recording, is posted here. It's accurate except for one slight change, and that is when it refers to cranial nerves. We're only referring to the cranial nerves 1. I think I misquoted myself the other day. 1, 2, and 8. Cranial nerve 1, okay, and 2, optic and olfactory, and 8, the vestibulocochlear nerve. Just those 3, because they happen to be part of the lab material anyway. So it's really not adding anything to you. There's a practice quiz for P3. I haven't gone over it with you. I'm not going to go over it with you yet because some of you aren't ready to take it. Some of you will be this weekend. And obviously, I think you learn more taking it yourself first off, and it gives you the answers. And then if you have a question on the answer because you still don't understand it, well, you bring that to class on Tuesday and we'll handle it. The recording for Tuesday, I put that up quickly. You're getting them back to me fast now. I hope that keeps up. And all we're going to do today, okay, is for lecture, is talk about the start of nervous tissue, and then there's a vessel quiz. This quiz is not really a quiz, it's a full-on practicum based upon mostly the human body. It was developed by another instructor, and you'll see the difference that they have in asking and answering their questions, but you know the way I present the questions to you in the practice quiz and then the 2 practicums we've already had. That's not going to change. But we can learn a lot from this vessel quiz. Okay, we'll start with the nervous tissue. This would be chapter 12, I believe. Wrong date. That doesn't matter. I got to get rid of all the dates so I can reuse these without any problem. Okay, functions of the nervous tissue. They're exactly what you would expect. Conduct sensory stimulus, touch, heat, cold, pain. Those are all sensory stimuli. So is light, and so is sound. To conduct sensory stimuli toward the central nervous system. And of course, that means the brain and the spinal cord. Motor impulses go away from the central nervous system along neurons and go to all parts of the body. Okay, so we have sensory, which can be thought of as incoming, motor, which can be thought of as outgoing. Sensory can be considered afferent, and motor can also be considered efferent. All those words are interchangeable. And the other thing that the nervous system does is maintain the homeostasis of the body. We've talked about that term once before. It's the status quo of the body that is in a healthy state. The components consist of the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. And that central nervous system, as we just said, is the brain and the spinal cord. I think I asked this on the first lecture test. The central nervous system is completely within the dorsal body cavity. There's nothing else in what we call the dorsal body cavity but the brain and the spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system consists of the afferent nervous system. Those are the sensory receptors and the sensory neurons coming in, back up, conduct sensory stimuli towards the CNS. So this part of the peripheral nervous system is also known as the afferent nervous system. The part of the nervous system that conducts impulses, motor impulses away from the brain or spinal cord is the efferent nervous system. These are motor neurons that we have here. And the autonomic nervous system is included here, which is broken down into two parts, the sympathetic and parasympathetic. Don't worry, I'm not skipping through this. We're coming to a diagram. And the cranial nerves. The cranial nerves are part of the efferent nervous system in many cases. Some of the cranial nerves are only sensory. For instance, the optic nerve is only sensory. It can see, but it can't do anything. The brain has to decide if something needs to be done, and it's not usually with the eye. It'll be with, oh, something's going to hit you, put your hand up. Okay. The autonomic nervous system is the part of the efferent nervous system that innervates. Innervates means acts upon. Smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, and glandular epithelium. Okay. If you don't quite understand that right now, I think you will in one more page. Okay. Here's the organization of the nervous system itself. At the top of our chart, with a bracket around it, is the brain and spinal cord, and that is the central nervous system. Everything below it, all these boxes, are the peripheral nervous system. The afferent nervous system, which is part of the peripheral nervous system, is located here. The afferent nervous system, or fibers, are sensory. The efferent fibers, outgoing or motor fibers, are efferent fibers, or the efferent nervous system. The key word here is efferent. And if there's another key word, it would be motor, but it's not in this chart. Okay, coming in, you go directly into the spinal cord and from there to the brain. Okay. Going out, the efferent fibers split up. Some go to the voluntary nervous system. Voluntary nervous system is also referred to as the somatic nervous system. Right here. Somatic nervous system. Somatic means of the body. This is all voluntary. So this would be muscles. This would be skeletal muscles that are being acted upon or innervated. Okay, skeletal muscle. Some of the efferent fibers go to the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system takes information from the central nervous system to smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, and the glands. On the other page a moment ago, I called that area glandular epithelium. And that's correct. And glands is correct. Do you have control over smooth muscle? Not directly. Indirectly, yes. I've already told you. I thought you could manage to make smooth muscle relax. Cardiac muscle, you don't have control over that directly, except maybe by speeding up the heart by running. Okay, and glands like the salivary gland, you don't have direct effect on that just by thinking about it. Okay, these are all under involuntary control. The autonomic nervous system is also called the involuntary nervous system. The somatic nervous system over here is also called the voluntary nervous system. The autonomic nervous system, which we'll learn on Tuesday, is broken into two parts, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. And we really don't need to say any more about that today. We have 2 lectures at least on that coming up. When we think of the brain and the spinal cord and the nervous system, we often think of neurons, you know, long or elongated cells, but we very rarely think of glial cells. Okay, glial cells are also known as neuroglia, and approximately 90% of the cells in the brain aren't neurons, they are glial cells. They serve several functions that will be listed below for you. In your brain and spinal cord, you have cells which are glial cells, but the type here is the astrocyte because they look sort of like a star. Okay, you might have to use your imagination, but these are considered a star shape. Here's the star shaped astrocyte right in here. And you can see what it's doing. This is a neuron over here. This is a neuron over here. This is a capillary over here. And the astrocyte is latching on to all of them, stabilizing them, holding them together, holding them in place. That's the main function of the astrocyte, is to hold everything in place. One astrocyte is not capable of holding a quadrant of the brain together. It takes hundreds of thousands to a million to hold it together. But they'd all look like this, astrocyte. Oligodendrocytes. These have extensions too, like the astrocyte did, but they're fewer in number. They tend to also hold things together, but since they have fewer extensions, they can't do as good a job in participating in that work. Instead, what they do is they myelinate neurons. Now, what's that mean? Here's a neuron down here. Is this yellow or orange?
Yellow.
Okay. The yellow cell is a typical neuron. And here's an astrocyte here, and another one here. But the oligodendrocyte, with fewer arms, sends many of those arms to wrap around this axon cylinder through which the impulse is going to travel. And when it travels through a myelinated cylinder, an impulse moves faster. So these guys tend to speed up the transmission of an impulse. We'll see in a moment that the impulse will be traveling from this direction here, the dendrite, into the nuclear area. Then along the axon or axon cylinder, can be called either one, and to the axon branches. In this case, they're calling them terminals. That's fine too. Okay. So the main function of the reason that we have oligodendrocytes, if we can say that on the thing, is to speed up the transmission of impulses. The term axon terminal, which the picture used, I snagged the picture, but I added this. It's also called a teleodendrion, or an axon branch. We're familiar with the fact that almost everything in anatomy has two names, sometimes here three. And then we have the microglia. Okay. Astrocytes, oligodendrocytes, and microglia are the three major types of glial cells. These account for up to 15% of all the cells in the central nervous system. And they essentially, although they can interconnect because they do have these attaching arms, their main function is to watch out for bacteria, cellular debris, metabolic debris, anything that doesn't help the functioning of the brain, and to absorb it and digest it. So they're the cleanup cells of the glial cells. They're also capable of diapedesis. You should remember that term. We use it with the white blood cell, the lymphocyte. Okay. Diapedesis, meaning they can change their shape, scoot between cells, get into capillaries, and do their job. Types of neurons. The neuron's the physiological unit of the nervous system. Should go without saying, but it always turns up on the test. We don't have just one neuron traveling to an organ. Often when we draw a picture on the board or you find one in the book, you see one neuron attaching one organ to another, and that's just not right. It's many, many neurons, and that makes up a nerve. Okay, and a nerve is bigger than a neuron. If you think of a box of spaghetti, okay, or a bag of spaghetti, even the guys must seen that. One strand would represent the neuron, but put them all in the back in the box or all into the sleeve, and you've got a nerve, and they're redundant. They do the same thing. Why do we need nerves? Why can't we just have neurons? We can't just have neurons because if there's only one neuron connecting two items, as soon as it gets broken in daily activity, we've lost the connection completely. We can damage a nerve, and people have had that happen. A place on your body goes numb, you've got some nerve damage, and the nerve can eventually regenerate, but not if it has gotten to a state as a neuron has, where it is completely dead. So a neuron is just one cell. A nerve is many cells, and all of them are called neurons. Those that go towards the CNS are called sensory nerves, and those, yes, and also known as afferent nerves. Those nerves that leave the CNS are called motor nerves or efferent nerves. So you have incoming nerves called afferent nerves, outgoing nerves called efferent nerves, but most nerves in the body are a two-way street. You have afferent coming in, and right next to it, side by side, parallel, are the efferent nerves. And they're called mixed nerves because they're going in both directions. Now, the optic nerve is an afferent nerve, and that's all there is to that. It's incoming, only incoming. Here are the three types of neurons. This is the text portion that I wrote for you, but I think I'm going to skip and come back to it and show you a picture first. Okay, how many neurons in a nerve? Okay, because that's how they'll travel. But how many neuron links, how many neurons do you think there are between the toe of an elephant and its uh, central nervous system? How many neurons? Well, then forget the elephant. If you step on a tack or you step on a pebble that feels bad, how many neurons are going to be activated to tell your brain you stepped on something?
A lot.
Okay, love those precise answers. Give me a number. I don't care if you're right or wrong.
25.
200.
Okay, I heard 25 and I heard 200. Thank you both. Uh, that's not the answer. It doesn't matter. Okay, this just gets us started. And let's just see what we're thinking. The number of neurons from your big toe to your brain is two, just two. Now, fortunately, they run with other neurons to make nerves. So there would be two nerves that go from your big toe to your brain. That's all we have. If we had more than that, every time we go from one nerve to the next nerve, everything slows down. It's like running through a train car like this, like here. Running through a train car, and then when you want to go from one car to the next, you got to go outside through the door, brave the rails below, and then get to the next car. Slows you down. Okay, it slows you down. So you don't want to have too many neurons. Okay, the place that you do have a lot of neurons in succession. Okay, and when I say neurons, I'm using it interchangeably with nerves too. Is in the brain itself, because you sit there and you think and you think. You ever get stuck on a question On a test, sure you have. And you think and you think and until you realize you're running out of time and you better guess. Uh, but that would be a series of neurons, and that slows things down. Thinking is slower. Thinking is slower. Okay, here's a neuron. These coral-like extensions are at the start of the neuron. These are dendrites. The dendrites receive the stimulus. Okay, so these are all dendrites. If one dendrite receives a stimulus, say it's pain, it'll send that impulse into the center, here called the cell body, but also called the perikaryon. Uh, I will show you the word perikaryon in here uh, before I ever quiz you on it. Okay, and then it's supposed to go this way, that pain sensation. Well, you ever have an ant crawl on you and you didn't even know it and somebody knocked it off? Okay, you didn't even feel it. It wasn't that great of a stimulus, and a little bit of pain may not be enough. So you come in and you with the pain sensation, and we say we depolarize the cell membrane here. Okay. Now, fortunately for me, I get to back off at this point because the physiologists want to tell you what they think depolarization is. They don't want me confusing you, so that's fine. It primes it anyway. Now, another stimulus from the same region, bringing the same pain sensation, depolarizes it more and more and more. You have to have so much depolarization or priming before this impulse will travel. Okay. There's an old book. I told you before. I don't read. I've never read a novel in my life. I I can't believe that people like to read anything but textbooks and manuals. That's all I read. Uh, but there was, I know of a couple of things, I guess, from television as a kid. Horton hears a who. Anybody know that one? No, Horton hears a
Of
who.
course,
Huh?
it's a great movie.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't see it as a movie. Now, if it had been a movie, I'd have seen it. Okay. I like movies. I don't like to read. Uh, a novel will put me to sleep after one page. And when I had to give a book report, I did it with Cliff Notes and raced through it as quick as I could. Okay, Horton hears a who. Well, I guess he picks up a dandelion or something, and he's going to crush it. Horton is, and all the who's little things that live on it are shouting, "No, no, no!" And he can't hear them, and they realize he can't hear them. So they're looking around for anybody who's not shouting, any who that isn't shouting. They finally find one last one, and he shouts and adds his voice, and then Horton hears him. Same thing here. You have to have a lot of incoming stimuli on these types of neurons. This is a multipolar neuron. And when we get a lot of stimulus, the depolarization ends up here, right where the little pointer is at the axon hillock. And if there's enough depolarization, at the axon hillock, it will fire, and a new impulse is generated to go all the way to the end and even split up and go to new cells. If there isn't quite enough depolarization, then the whole exercise is futile. There will be no firing of the impulse. It has to be an all or none effect. The impulse itself moves down the axon. That's also called the axon cylinder. And then it comes out and can branch. These are the axon branches we saw a moment ago, also known as teleodendria, and the book called them axon terminals. And these are going to synapse come together with the next dendrite on the next axon until instead of synapsing with the next dendrite, they instead synapse with a muscle and they come to an end. This is it light blue, the little boxcars. These are to represent myelin sheath. The myelin sheath is that material that speeds up the transmission. It's also very clear in color because it's got or white in color because it's got a lot of fat in it. The myelin sheath can be composed from the oligodendrocytes that we talked about a moment ago. The oligodendrocytes can wrap around them. That only happens, though, in the central nervous system, the brain, and spinal cord. In the peripheral nervous system, we also have myelination, but it's not done by the oligodendrocytes. It's done by a different type of cell called the Schwann cell that is not in the dorsal body cavity. Okay. Now, just hang on to the Schwann cell idea. We'll be coming back to that later. Okay. They've chosen to do a peripheral neuron here. That's why they have a Schwann cell. Between the two myelinated areas is an area called the node of Ranvier. Another one, another one. This is a multipolar neuron, multiple ways in, multiple ways out. Then we have bipolar neurons. The bipolar neuron may have multiple ways in, right up here, the dendrite. They have a lot of ways in, but they all come in through one dendrite. Come to the cell body, and then out the axon. Okay. There is no opportunity for a bipolar neuron to change things. In other words, back here, in the multipolar neuron, we have impulses coming in. They can go different ways, and they can go to different successive neurons, and they can cause different effects. The bipolar neuron doesn't have that opportunity. There's one way in and one way out, and nothing is going to change. Well, where do we find that in the human body? We find it in the eye and the ear. Okay. So when light impinges at this spot here, comes into the dendrite, activates the cell body, which sends the impulse to the brain without changing it. So obviously you've got some of these cones, as they're called, that respond to yellow, blue, red, green, okay, but they don't mix with each other. Now, the bipolar neuron, one way in, one way out. And now we have the pseudo unipolar neuron. Used to just be called the unipolar neuron. Okay, that was incorrect, but it was called that for years. Unipolar neuron. Now it's a pseudo unipolar neuron. Well, let's see what that is. This neuron has dendrites. It even has myelination on the dendrite. And then it goes up into the nucleus of the cell body, and comes back down a slightly different way. It's almost like the bipolar that we just saw, but instead of going straight through the middle, the cell body is off to the side. We find that there is a physical difference under the microscope of these cells and their location and what they do. These cells are primarily the sensory cells of the skin. These are the pain cells, pressure cells, heat cells. Now, if you can think back carefully to last Tuesday, we had the dorsal root bringing in the sensory information. And we had a large dorsal root ganglion, because really that's the accumulation of not just one, but thousands of cells, each with their own perikaryon or cell nucleus. And they're going to accumulate together here and bulge. And that's what makes the dorsal root ganglion. Okay. There's some vocabulary words for you here. A lot of them you already know. Thank God. A nerve is a bundle of nerve fibers. A nerve fiber is also a neuron. If you think of, I use this in muscle, but if you think of a twisted plastic rope with many, many, many fibers running in it, the rope is the nerve, and each fiber, like the strand of spaghetti, is the neuron. Afferent fibers conduct towards the central nervous system. I know we just did it, but I think it helps to repeat it right now. Afferent fibers, they conduct impulses away from the central nervous system. Somatic refers to the body, the organs, anything related to the skin and to the muscles. The skin and muscles. Okay. I may have misled you here. Visceral, of course, is to the visceral organs, also just known as the viscera. So that would be the internal organs that you could take out during a dissection. A neuron, it's a nerve cell with a cell body and all of its processes. An axon, a single, usually elongated process, and it conducts impulses away from the nerve cell body. You could also say it conducts impulses away from the axon hillock. You could also say it conducts impulses towards the axon terminals or axon branches or teleodendria. Dendrites, multiple shorter branch processes that conduct impulses towards the nerve cell body. The perikaryon, here it is in print for a change. This is the nerve cell body with the nucleus inside. The term peripheral process usually refers to the bipolar nucleus over here, and we would also call it a dendrite. In fact, the image that I showed you a moment ago did call it a dendrite. This is the peripheral or dendrite. This is the axon or central process. This one over here has the axon, dendrites, perikaryon. This is a bipolar. This is a multipolar. This is the first one we did. This is the second. Receptor is not a tough term at all. It's any structure that detects a change in the environment, okay, and that can cause the transmission of an impulse. So if we have receptor cells in the eye, if they detect light, they can then transmit the impulse. The word effector bothers some people, however. An effector is a muscle or a gland. It is not something that effects. It looks like a noun, but it's not. It's uh well, yeah. It's not something that effects. It's something that is effected. The effector is the one that is effected. It's a muscle or a gland. Synapse, functional contacts between neurons. This is trying to show in a diagrammatic fashion the cell body, perikaryon, the axon, and then the axon branches. Coming to the next, what's not drawn in here are the dendrites, and the next, gray matter. Gray matter is the part of the nervous tissue that is not myelinated. Okay. When we talk about the gray matter of the spinal cord, which we looked at, uh, that is not myelinated. It is a slower, more thoughtful, if I can use that word, uh, uh, entity. White matter, on the other hand, have aggregations of myelinated axons. Myelinated axons. Well, that means you have a bunch of neural axons from various neurons coming together, and they will appear white under the microscope, and they also speed up the transmission of the impulse. Ganglion and nucleus. We'll do ganglion first. Everybody's heard of a ganglion, but uh, I'm not dare going to ask you to tell me the definition, even if you could read it here. Okay, it's a collection of nerve cell bodies outside of the CNS. Okay, in other words, it's a collection of neural cell bodies in the PNS. When you get a Novocaine injection through the mental foramen or the mandibular foramen, your needle is looking for a ganglion in each case, because there you have a cluster of nerves, and they're outside of the CNS. They're in the PNS. That cluster of nerves gets hit with the Novocaine, and then I guess the job goes on less painfully. A nucleus is a collection of nerve cell bodies, but it's in the brain or the spinal cord. It's in the CNS. Okay, so we have a new definition for nucleus, and our first time definition for a ganglion. Okay, anybody with a question? We're going to do it just the way we did on Tuesday. Uh, the lecture portion or going over it's taken us just exactly as the same time as on Tuesday. We'll give us about a 15-minute break, and then we'll come back and I want to go through quite a few helpful uh, images of the human body and the vessels. Okay. So if you have no question, I'll see you at 3:13. Okay.
Excuse me, Charlie. How many questions for a lecture exam for next week?
No, there's no lecture exam next week. Practical.
Practice that.
Right. 100.
100.
100. And they're all images. They're all
Actually,
pictures.
50 minutes is so so short time.
No, that's longer. That's as long as oh, I actually only gave 60 minutes last year, but I'll give you guys the full length of time. But a couple of things. The few people that looked away from the test a lot, they are able to do that and essentially cheat because I'm giving them too much time, and I that can't happen. I really will have to come down hard on anybody who does that. Now you can look away, not you personally. You can look away from the test 5 times. You shouldn't need to look away from the test at all, because we're going to be preparing well today and well on Tuesday. But you get the same amount of time that the face-to-face class gets on campus, and you don't have to go from station to station and wait for other people to get out of the way so that you can see it. So no, I feel it's an adequate length of time.
Okay,
And
thank you.
The other thing is, well, you're thanking me, but you're not getting what you want. The other instructors and I have all come up with that amount of time.
Actually, the last exam, I'm not read all of the quiz. The end of the quiz, just paint it. I don't know. Don't in end of the quiz.
Well, that's not what it's testing you on. Do you know it or not? So I can't give you short time. I have to give you enough time. And like I said,
Yeah.
Over
For
the
short,
years, it's been enough
for a
time.
short time. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Anybody
you.
else? Okay. Now I'll see you at
See
3:15.
you later. Okay.
Okay, I'm back. Someone say hi or something so I know you hear me.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hi.
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 Okay.
Hello.
I've talked on and on sometimes and people can't hear me and they don't say anything and it's like that was a waste of time. Okay. The last day to drop is next Thursday. If needing to see the result of your test has an influence on that for you, well, you will see the result of your test. Okay. Most of you are doing good work, and I'm not too concerned about that. However, mention it again. Let me see. No, yeah. If you're enrolled, not enrolled, if you're not enrolled in the Bio 110, or you were enrolled, but now you're not enrolled in Bio 110. Okay, there's a few people that fit that category. If you're not enrolled in Bio 110, then you don't need to pay any attention to what I'm going to say right now. If you are still enrolled in Bio 110, just think back and look at your number of chapter outlines you got in. If you're caught up, almost caught up, one or two to go or something like that, you're fine. You're fine. But if you have nothing to show for Bio 110 except for maybe the first two or three, and then you quit doing them, please do yourself a favor and drop Bio 110, okay? Because I will not be able to save you from the F that is going to go with that, okay? So please look and see if you enroll in Bio 110. If you haven't been keeping up with the outlines, then this is a week's notice to drop, okay? Now, don't drop Bio 11 at the same time. And we found out last week that dropping 110 does not drop you anymore from Bio 11, okay? Just take care of your 110. Everybody else, I don't intend to give any grades for 110 except an A, okay? And, okay, questions? Okay, well, let's go back to it then. Can you see the screen? It's number 9.
No, I just see you still.
Oh.
Oh, okay. I tried to take a shortcut. That didn't work. Okay. Are you with me at week 11?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. But we're not at the top of week 11 now. We're down here and looking at this vessel quiz, which I said really is a full-on examination. It only has it had 64 questions. I didn't think some of them were appropriate for you, so I cut it down to 42. There are no points associated with this. Canvas doesn't understand that I put down practice quiz, so practice quiz should be no points, but 42 questions. Okay. No time limit on this one because it's just practice. Okay, let's enlarge this. I don't know if I can. Yeah. Okay. This uses mostly the flatboard model. Not my favorite, but you can learn a lot from it. And it wants to know what this vessel is. This is shine right here. This is shine. This is not two vessels. So what's this one? Anybody want to make a guess? This is the toughest one on the whole page. It's the internal jugular vein. Now, I see this one as being smaller, but that's the external jugular vein on this model. Now, it happens to be on the right side, so we need to look for right internal jugular vein, which is right here. Look at this. I don't do this to you, but somebody does it to their students. Look at how many answers.
That's crazy.
You're going to take forever just to find the answer. So I usually ended at 5 questions, 4 sometimes, 5 usually. But this is a practice quiz, and you have no time limit. And so, even though I'm going to mark it right now, and watch, I'll look for the answers and find out that I missed a couple. Oh God. Well, okay, right internal jugular. Now we want the other one. This is on the right side. It's the external jugular. Okay. In the past, it was necessary for the student to write it out longhand, whether the item was an artery, a vein, right, or left. I don't want that, and it won't be on my test. On my test, this would, for instance, this one would be the external jugular vein. That wouldn't even be that. The external jugular, period. I don't use right. I don't use left. I don't use artery. I don't use vein. Name this vessel. Well, again, this is shine here, okay? But this vessel coming up, this is the superior vena cava, splitting into the brachiocephalics. We also know it's the vein, but we just need to find superior vena cava. There it is. Do you want me to give you a chance to name them, or do you just want me to name them? If you want a chance at naming, I'll just shout out. Question 4 here. This was the superior vena cava. Now it comes up, and this is a split here. This must be the brachiocephalic, and here's the other brachiocephalic. This happens to be the right one. So I'm looking for right brachiocephalic. Here it is. Now the reason I have to take the time and look for right brachiocephalic vein, not artery, is because this test is going to score you based upon getting that right. Okay, so it has to take a little bit more time, but sometimes the extra time is worth it. Look at how many questions, answers. Well, this shouldn't be hard then, should it? This has got to be the left brachiocephalic vein. It's down here. naming this vessel here, it's pointing to the vein. It could just as easily point to the artery. They have the same name. They're anybody? Subclavian. Subclavian, going underneath the collarbone or the clavicle. So right now I need right subclavian vein. On this side, well, hell, they're making it easy for a moment. That's the left subclavian vein. Uh-oh. No, this one you haven't had. Yes, you have, on the cat, though. You haven't had it here. And this is the right side. This would be the facial. Right facial, and it's pointing to two, I think, blue areas. Yeah, so it's right facial vein. This would be the facial artery. I didn't give you that. I gave you lingual facial vein and lingual artery. If it's not on my list, if it's not on the list I gave you, then it won't be asked. But for this purpose of this test, we can learn. And we're looking for right. I wonder if I could go with maxillary on that. I'm going to try maxillary. Later on when I do the key, I might actually be wrong on this one. Okay. So again, forgive me. Well, it looks like it is meant to be the no, not axillary, maxillary. That's tricky. Since there is no maxillary, then it's got to be the right facial artery. Nope, there it is, right above it. Boy, I would hate to take a test like this. Okay, this point here, this one is the inferior mesenteric artery. Way down here. See it? Inferior mesenteric. These are the gonadal arteries, gonadal vein. So this is pointing to one of the gonadal arteries. It's the left gonadal artery. This is the left gonadal vein, which comes into the renal vein. We want to name this vessel. Okay, here's the white arrow. It's pointing to this one. On this test, you have to be careful. On my test, you would simply say renal, but it's pointing to the red one. So we want the right renal artery. Okay, here we have liver. This is the spleen. This little chopped piece is a piece of stomach. Okay, here's the pancreas. We want the name of this vessel here. It's coming from the celiac, and this is going to the spleen. Okay, so this is the splenic artery. Naming this vessel, this is going out into the liver. This has got to be the hepatic artery. I think that was down at the bottom. This large deep blue color here, this has got to be the inferior vena cava. This one, well, this is the aorta. So this is the abdominal aorta. '18. This is pointing to this red structure that's running through the vertebral foramina of the cervical vertebra. This is the vertebral artery. On the left side. Okay, God. Question 19 points to this little structure here. Well, in the human, we have mirror image. This is the common iliac artery, common iliac vein. External iliac artery, external iliac vein. These are the internal iliacs, and it's pointing to the vein. So it's the right internal iliac vein. '20 asks to name this vessel here. Okay, this is above the knee and in the thigh. It's on the left side, so it should be the femoral. Femoral starts from the deep femoral, which is right here. Splits, goes both ways. So left femoral artery. Okay. Think about it. Somebody's going to take this test next week. This, just like this. Oh, probably not the exact test, but I know the person who made it up. Okay, name the vessel. Both arrows are pointing to the same vessel. Okay. This one here that we have is the popliteal on the right. No, I'm sorry. It's the great saphenous. Right? It's the very first one. The popliteal runs behind the knee. Notice how this foot is facing forward and this one is abducted to the right, to the left. Behind the knee is the popliteal. medial to the knee is the great saphenous. Now we want this one. They've made an artificial cut right here. Okay. Common iliac, external iliac. Okay. The external iliac goes until we reach the deep femoral, which is here. And so here we have again the femoral vein, right femoral vein. This, on the other hand, is the right external iliac vein.
It's down a few, closer to the bottom.
Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay. I passed it a couple of times. How'd you like to be taking a test like that and you can't find the answer in this maze? No. That's not to say I'm not going to use some of these pictures. Not at all. I will use some of these pictures. But your answers will be more limited, more realistic, I should say. Okay, name the vessel. And here we want to come up here and just come off at this point. That's the vein. That's the right side. That's the deep femoral. Oh, I missed it again. There it is. Well, finally, not right, easy one. This is going to the adrenal gland. This is the suprarenal vein on the left side. So second one here. Even easier. This is on the right side, going right into the kidney, right renal vein. Now, I know we saw some of these pictures on Tuesday. They're pretty nice ones, actually. Model is. Here we want the aortic arch, I hope. Now, take a look for the answer. There it is. Now this one, if it's not the aortic arch again, it's got to be the ascending aorta going upward, the ascending aorta. This one is the popliteal. artery, left popliteal artery, because it's on the posterior side, as we said before, of the knee. Down here, left popliteal artery. This one over here, on the left side, this is the common iliac artery, left common iliac artery. This little one is straight in the middle. We don't have very much of a mid-sacral, but that's it. On the other hand, I'm going to search through this thing. I hope I find mid-sacral, but I could also find hemizygous. I could also find middle sacral. They're all correct terms depending upon what this instructor taught her class. Okay, I would have taught you mid-sacral. That's what you'd have answered from me. Okay, let's see what we can find. There it is. It is mid-sacral. ABCs, aorta, brachiocephalic, carotid, subclavian for the left side, left subclavian artery. Name this vessel, it's the one in the middle, A, B, C. It's the carotid, and it's for the left side. Way down here. 34 is this first one, which we said is the B, brachiocephalic artery. 35. Okay, this is running up the side of the neck. That's the epiglottis and the thyroid. This is going to be on the right side, the right common carotid. Wait, let me look at that. Should be right common carotid. The very last one. Name this vessel. This is one of the jugular, I'm sorry, the carotids. Okay, here's the common carotid. This one's the internal carotid going up inside. This is the external carotid, and it's on the left side, left and external carotid. Now let me ask you a question. Did I show you these yet? The ones with the skull and the two carotids here and the vertebral running through?
I don't think so. Somebody else can correct me if I'm wrong, though. You might have.
Yeah, I'm just
I
waiting
don't
for.
think so.
Okay. They're very easy. I'll either do it at the end of this because we're not spending a lot of time on this actually, or I'll do it on Tuesday. Even seeing them once, they're the easiest. You know, I did show it to you. You probably don't remember. I showed you a previous test on Tuesday, and they would have been included. So don't worry about it for right now. Name this vessel. This is the internal carotid, and it's on the left side. Left. Oh, it's way up here, separated from its partners further down. Okay. Fortunately for you and me, we don't have to stop and do right and left artery or vein. 38. Okay. This down here is an artery on the right side. It's the external iliac. Here's the common iliac, external iliac, internal iliac. So we want right external iliac. Well, I didn't see it going twice through. It is definitely right. It is definitely external iliac. Don't let me miss it. I didn't see it again. I don't believe the correct answer is here. Okay, so I won't rag on the other instructor too much because I do that once in a while too. But right internal, right external cannot be anything else. There it is. There it is. Okay. 39. It is pointing to red. So this is going to be left internal iliac artery. That's it. 40. This slow down, okay, here on the arms to brachial, left brachial artery. If it were up around where the humerus is, right here, between here and here, this is the axillary. This was the subclavian that we saw a little bit earlier, making the arch. Subclavian, now axillary, and then further down, brachial. Left brachial. Okay, on this side, here is the, again, an artery. Here's the subclavian, and this is the axillary, up around the head of the humerus. So we want right axillary artery. This one is on the right side. This is the subclavian. Right subclavian artery. Okay. That's their 42 questions, and those are all on the human model. Okay. I'll be going over the cat model, cat pictures with you as well. Okay, knowing that and you too, could make a mistake trying to do right and left, even artery or vein, or just going blind, looking at all these different choices go by you. There's going to be some mistakes in this, but hopefully not many. Let's see. Okay. Oh, I'm not going to go look back at every one. 39. 39. So there's 3 mistakes in here. And I don't think it is in content. I think the mistakes got made here on rights, lefts, and arteries and veins, possibly. Okay. Okay. So interesting. I'll leave that quiz up for you, but let's go back. This quiz will not be available to you over the weekend. It is way too much like the test that I always make up. It's a previous test. I told you that. Okay. And I will have something else for you. Okay. I'm not slowing down on this on purpose here. The ear, I'm just refreshing your memory to study these things. Okay. The parts of the ear, the functions of the ear. The eye, the functions of the parts of the eye for which we gave a function. A more reasonable number of answers too.
Much more reasonable.
Okay, models of the eye and the real sheep eye. Don't forget the white blood cells. That's the monocyte. That's the neutrophil. Difference between artery and vein. The thicker one is the artery. Parts of the brain using a model. Now, I fully intend to use the sheep heart model that's embedded in your lecture notes. You know, if you can't find it, ask me. No, here it is. Okay, there's the sheep part. Sheep brain. Know the names. You need to know the functions of all of the structures of the brain given to you in sort of a table. Now, that one has the most, and there's a special reason for that, but they're not tough. Back to the model again with the pituitary gland. This one with the hypothalamus down here. The arbor vitae. The lateral ventricle. The dorsal root ganglion. The ventral root. The sympathetic trunk ganglia going around the outside, the dura mater. Some questions on the fetal circulation. That's what this is. 3, 4 questions, fetal circulation. On the valves, the pulmonary semilunar, myocardium, pulmonary trunk, the epicardium or visceral pericardium, the papillary muscle, the left auricle, or just the auricle. So on the left side, this is the aortic semilunar valve. Left side is always the larger side, no matter which way it's facing. Coronary sinus. The right ventricle. This is the cusp of the mitral valve. Chordae tendineae. IV septum. The apex. This is the tricuspid valve. It's also the cusp of the tricuspid valve. Trabeculae carneae here. And then on the cat, this is the superior vena cava. Okay. This is the brachiocephalic here. This blue one is the mammary. And this reddish one is the mammary artery. The other mammary artery comes from the other side. It's in the background here. And this guy down here, this is the vertebral, avertebral anyway. Looks like we have peak in another vertebral over here. Okay, that was the mammary again. Brachiocephalic. This is the carotid. This one, look at the pelvic region here. This is past the end. This is where we have the deep femoral. This is the femoral. Now, the arrow is almost between artery and vein. It makes no difference because for me, I just want femoral.
Can you point out the deep femoral again?
Right here. Sometimes it's better than this. Sometimes it's not even this good. Runs across.
Thank you.
This is the inferior mesenteric going to the colon. This is the external iliac. The internal iliac is going to be in here. We'll see it next. There's the internal iliac. There's two of those. Oh, we've seen enough of this guy. Okay, so assuming I showed you everything on Tuesday, you did get one look at this. Okay, this is the number 77, the common carotid, and then it splits to the external carotid and goes in to the internal carotid. The internal carotid is the one that goes in through the carotid foramen by your ear. And then the other vessel running down through the vertebral foramen here is the vertebral. 78 is the vertebral. External carotid, 79. 80, that's the subclavian, A, B, C, S. These number 81s here and here, these are mammaries. Start is here, comes up to here. This one has been stretched, comes over to here, and it meets with the mammary vein up here. This is the subscapular. A little tougher, but here it goes. Brachiocephalic, brachiocephalic vein. External jugular, and here we have the internal jugular. We have both of those. Then we have a small bit of subclavian, and then we have the subscapular. After we pass the subscapular, it's brachial all the rest of the way. So 83 is brachial. 84 is transverse jugular or transverse facial. Maxillary for 85. 86 lingual facial. 87 is transverse scapular, in this case vein, running down the side. Here's the external jugular. Here's the transverse scapular. Here's the subscapular from the other side. Renal, gonadal, iliolumbar, midsacral. Bad picture, but there's really no need to change it. I said iliolumbar. You should have slapped me. Midsacral. Over here, number 92 is the great saphenous. Remember, it runs on the medial side of the knee. Here's the popliteal. It's going to run behind the knee. This is the descending thoracic aorta. This is a pulmonary vein, even though it's red, but because it's red, it's a pulmonary vein. This is a suprarenal vein. the abdominal aorta. And here it's pointing to this one. You may have to squint and think about it for a second, but there's the heart. And this is the inferior vena cava towards the liver side. Okay. The lungs are above it. And so this is the superior vena cava. The one in the middle is the common carotid, or just carotid. And 100 is brachiocephalic. Okay, just running through the modules, backing up, and what I'm looking for is where you should be studying. Nope, you've done that. List of heart structures on 3.9. I don't know if you're taking notes or you're going to listen to the recording. But list of heart structures on 3.9. Maybe the recording itself. The heart, 3.11. 3.11, the heart models and specimens for lab. So really what I'm in here is week 8. We don't need the human muscle model. Cat muscle slides, no. In week 9, on 316, the ear, brain, eye, heart. There's a recording for all of these. In week 10, fetal circulation on 320. 330, vessels above the diaphragm, and 330, vessels below the diaphragm. There are cat pictures embedded in there as well, so it's not just going to be that flat, boring model. Some of the things like preparing for L2, I'll probably just deactivate those so that you don't get to thinking you got to do that again. Okay. That's it. That's all I can say.
So all of everything that says lecture starting 3/9.
Well, now you're going to make me look back at it and see what
Sorry,
I
I'm just double checking.
I know. I think the best thing to do anyway, because some people may not have paper or pen, however, they're trying to memorize this. I'll just send you guys a message, okay, with the material. I think I already did, in fact, anyway. I'll just check it over. It says preparing for P3, okay? If you check your email, you should find it, and I'll check, and if I don't find it to be adequate, I'll send you a better one. Okay. P3 tends to be easier. I think because it's clear. It's a lot clearer than some of the other material. Okay, any last minute questions? Okay, then you can hang around and ask some questions if you want with fewer people, but otherwise you can have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Hi, thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.